So the floodgates have opened. The first trade prior to the NHL trade deadline has officially gone down. So Josh Manson of the Anahiem Ducks, who wanted to re-sign with the Anahiem Ducks, but unfortunately that is not the case, has been traded to the Colorado Avalanche in return for prospect Drew Helleson and a second, and here's the kicker, 2023 round pick. It's not a
Yeah.
2022 round pick. And it was earlier reported that Frank Savarelli was saying that teams were asking more for next year's draft picks because of how deep the draft is heading forward. With guys like Bedard and Mitchkov and so on. So right there, his point is valid because that's exactly what happened. It was a 2023 second round pick that got traded and not a 2022 second round pick. So we're going to be doing a breakdown, obviously. Let's start off with, what do you think about the deal? Because personally,
Uh,
I love this deal for the Ducks.
I think it's well, I think it goes to show you what the market is for defensemen at the moment. And I mean, look, you pay attention to a guy like Josh Manson. He's played some good hockey this year. He's not really an offensive defenseman. He's more of a defensive defenseman. I think that's exactly what Colorado needs. They don't really have Sam Girard in the lineup, and Devin Tays has kind of helped a bit on his own on a tear this year for them. But improving on defense, you can never have too many defensemen. And I think Josh Manson, especially getting him on retained salary as well, is really good for them because it means that they can go out and make other moves as well, but they address a need, which is a defenseman, and to help them out and bolster their team. So I like that deal for Colorado. For Anaheim, they're getting a really good prospect. Drew Helleson's been a guy that I think has been talked about by a lot of Colorado fans and a lot of Colorado media around the NHL, talking about how much potential this guy has. And he's 20 years old. He currently plays for Boston College. And the guy's got 25 points in 32 games. I mean, he's a guy that maybe for the Ducks, especially defensive depth and stuff, like it really helps the Ducks in a lot of ways because they get themselves a really good, decent prospect and a guy who looks like he may potentially crack the NHL at the end of the season once his college season's over. And that second round pick, like you mentioned, is more of a situation where it's like the 2023 draft is really deep, and so acquiring draft picks from that year is going to help entice teams a little bit more because of the fact that the draft looks to be very, very deep.
I would also like to add that the Ducks were able to retain half of his contract, Josh Manson's contract. He's
Yeah.
currently getting paid 4.1 million, so the Ducks are eating half of that contract. In terms of why this deal was made now and not earlier, well, the Colorado Avalanche just put Samuel Girard and Gabriel Landeskog on LTIR, so that freed up a lot of cap space for them. So that was very smart on terms of doing that. So, everyone was saying, "Oh, Claude Giroux, they're opening up cap space. I mean, they have cap space now essentially to acquire Claude Giroux because that's what everyone wants to happen, right? People are comparing the Claude Giroux situation to oh my god, I forgot his name. Not Rene Bork, but his name was Bork. In the early 2000s, who played his whole career with the Colorado with the Boston Bruins, never won a cup, gets traded to Colorado and wins a cup, and then
You mean Ray Bork?
eventually. Sorry.
Is it Ray Bork that you're talking about?
Yes, Ray Bork. Yes. So people want to see that, but with Claude Giroux, a guy who spent his full the majority of his career, basic or the full extent of his career right now with the Philadelphia Flyers. He goes to a team like Colorado, who has what it takes to win, and see them win a cup. But instead, they add on defense. Gerard should be back before the playoffs. So people thinking, oh, they made this move to kind of like find a replacement for Gerard. That's not the case. They were kind of looking at adding defense and adding uh, a veteran on forward, which everyone's thinking it's going to be Claude Giroux, a guy
Yeah.
who's able to play left wing and center. Um, but I like this deal for Colorado. I
I
think this is fantastic in terms of win now for them. Yeah, you give up a second round pick in 2023, but you're always going to be competitive within at least the next 5 seasons, right? So the
that
Ducks are a team that are rebuilding. Yes, they had a fantastic start to the season. Things kind of plummeted as the season continued. They were in a playoff spot too at one point too, but they just realized, what, we have notable UFAs in Ricard Raquel, Josh Manson, and also Hampus Lindholm. And it's better that we just say, you know what? If we make the playoffs, we make the playoffs with the team that we have, but we need to get rid of these players. And that's essentially what happened. They got a really good
Yeah.
offer for Josh Manson and they took it and they ran away with it. And I think this is a win for both teams. One team that's trying to rebuild, thinking of the future, and another team in Colorado where they're in a win now
Well,
mode, knowing that they could potentially lose a guy like Kadri in the
and
offseason.
and I think what's really really interesting about this is that it kind of I think we all kind of expected the dominoes to fall once Jacob Chikrin got injured. There was a lot of talk about Jacob Chikrin going into trade deadline, and obviously, last thing was last night or 2 games ago or 2 nights ago he got injured, and now he's out for 2 to 4 weeks. And I think that kind of bolstered teams like Colorado, especially, to go out there and make a move right away because look, the market's pretty high, and I mean right now, it looks like John Klingberg's kind of gone off the trade list, at least for now. And obviously with Ben Sherratt, he's been the most notable name on the market at the moment. And so Josh Manson, I don't know how much interest he got. I know that there was a quite a bit at the beginning. I don't know how much that ended up happening, but I mean, look, Colorado's a great fit, and I think that Colorado's the best chance you have at probably winning a cup. And so for Josh Manson, I think this is a great move for his career because at the end of the day, like you're going from a rebuilding team to a cup contender, and he has a legitimate chance at winning a Stanley Cup here. And with Josh Manson, like chances are he probably doesn't go stay in Colorado after the season starts unless he plays really really well. Um, Due to the fact that Colorado don't have cap space, but also because of the fact that they have to sign guys like Kadri and there's a few other notable names as well. But what's interesting about this whole situation with Josh Manson is he can go to Colorado, win himself a cup, and then if he wants to go back to Anaheim and re-sign in Anaheim in the offseason, he can do that as well. So I think it's a win-win for not only the Avalanche, I think it's a win-win for the Ducks as well because they get themselves, like you said, a young prospect and a draft pick and a decent prospect as well. But they also get the opportunity at potentially bringing Josh Manson back. So if you think about it from that perspective, if the Ducks end up bringing him back in the offseason, if he doesn't end up signing in Colorado, the Ducks essentially got three players for essentially two players for free.
Because
So
John, because Josh
two assets for
Manson,
free.
okay, he wanted to sign with with a Californian team because he's from California, right?
Yeah,
He was weighing his options. If I were to get traded out of Anaheim, I would like to either go to San Jose or Los Angeles.
yeah.
Instead, he gets traded to Colorado, and the way I'm thinking about this now is because how can you say no to Colorado? Yes, you wanna sign in California and be closer to home, but you also want to win a Stanley Cup, right? So essentially, being highly sought out to be traded to Colorado, you can't say no to that. And
Of
that's
course
why
not.
I think that's why they traded him to Colorado opposed to like a California team. And really, the only other Californian team that's really competing for the Stanley Cup that's heading to the playoffs is LA. And I don't think they want to give up too much because they're not there yet in terms of like
Well,
their
I think
team being successful, but they are they're getting there, and they have a surplus of prospects and picks, and they have a fantastic team on paper right now, and they're a competitive team. They've been one of the most surprising teams this year, so that's why a team like LA did not trade for him. But I just wanted to get to Drew Helleson for
yeah,
a couple of minutes. So he was a 2019 second round pick, drafted 47th overall by the Colorado Avalanche. He's 6'3". He's a defenseman, like Luca said
yeah.
early on in the video, and he's currently playing for Boston College. And see, what I love about Boston is just the development. Okay, everything that comes out of Boston seems to be gold in the modern day
Seems
and
it seems
age of
like it. Yeah,
hockey. So I think this guy will play for the Anahiem Ducks. He has the potential. I don't think this is going to be a prospect that, he plays the majority of his career in the farm league in the AHL. This guy will definitely have a spot on the Anahiem Ducks in a couple years. He's 20 years old. I would give him maybe max by the next 3 years. This guy will have a permanent spot on the Anahiem Ducks. So you're getting a guy that's not relatively too close, but getting there in terms of making the jump to the NHL. And you're getting a second round pick in a 2023 draft, which is supposed to be really, really heavy in terms of the prospects available. So I mean, it looks good for for the Colorado Avalanche now in terms
Yeah.
of win now. But if they fail to win the Stanley Cup, then the Ducks hands down win this deal.
Well, I think it's also like, look, you talk about a guy like Drew Helleson. He's a puck moving defenseman. You know, he's played really well this season, like I said before. But he's a guy that I think is highly touted. You know, when he got drafted in 2019, I saw a lot of scouts talking about how great of a prospect he was and how Colorado got themselves a really good player there. And I mean, look, you know, for the Ducks, it's an opportunity for them to build their decor, like we said again, right? They've got Jamie Drysdale. There's rumors about them potentially wanting to bring back Hampus Lindholm as well. And so they've got already a stabilized decor. And now they bring in a guy like Drew Helleson, who's probably going to end up playing on the NHL team at the end of the season. And for Colorado, like, you're essentially, what you're doing is you're sending a message to the league saying this is our way of telling you we're competing. And look, you look at this comparable to the trade that we're talking about. I mean, it's kind of comparable to David Savard last year, just in the way that Tampa made that move. Obviously, Tampa traded away a first round pick and a third rounder, but Drew Helleson is essentially like getting the value of a first round pick, right? It's basically a second and it's 2 seconds, right? Essentially, because Drew Helleson was a second round pick, but he's got a lot of potential. So it's technically 2 second round picks for Josh Manson, which is similar to David Savard if you think about it in terms of asset management and whatever. So I think I like this move a lot for Colorado because even if, you know, yes, they get Josh Manson, they're trading away a prospect. Colorado's in win now mode, and they're going to be in win now mode for a long time because they've got the players to do it. And so I don't think Colorado's too upset about the idea of losing a prospect, hence why they made the deal. But I think this is another move for Joe Sakic and another great move from Joe Sakic because I think it's a move that may actually pay off. You know, we talked about Colorado last year in the Vegas series about them struggling and not being able to play some physical hockey and kind of getting outplayed by Vegas in that sense. And you get a guy, a defensive defenseman, who's gonna play the body and he's gonna be responsible defensively. So Colorado's already boosting themselves there, and I think that that's really important for them going into the playoffs.
And Josh Manson is not an offensive defenseman whatsoever
Well,
because why would Colorado need that? I mean, the Colorado Avalanche have guys like Samuel Girard, Devon Taves, and how can we forget Kale McCarr?
yeah,
All puck moving defensemen, all guys that are offensive. So essentially, they're here for more of a defensive defenseman, a more stay back home defenseman, and the guy they gave up plays that same type of game too. Drew Helleson plays the same type of game. They're both defensive defensemen. They're both 6'3", except one of them is 20 years old and the other one is 30 years old.
yeah, but Drew Hellison's more of a puck mover. I would say he's more of a two-way D compared to a defensive defenseman, but still, they've got similar qualities.
I'm not saying that they're exactly the same, but I
Yeah,
mean, you ready? My sense is that this guy will make the jump and play in the NHL in the next couple of seasons. So like, and looking at his stats and just looking at the comparison in size and the position they play as well, defense. Um, for me, like, I don't see how Anaheim does not win this deal long term. But as of right now, if Colorado wins the Stanley Cup, I mean, they win the deal now. But again, this is when it comes to prospects and when it also comes to picks as well, it all depends on how the players develop and which players are selected in the draft.
yeah.
Manson also adding, he's 30 years old there, so he's up there in age. The Ducks are trying to get younger. So again, for my concluding thoughts, it's a win for Colorado now, but in terms of the long haul, it's a win for the Ducks.
I mean, look, I think you know we can always make early predictions about who do we think is going to win, but like I kind of agree with you. I mean, look, if Colorado wins the cup, they won the ultimate prize. So at the end of the day, they win the trade. But in terms of long term, I think the Ducks win this hands down. Like there's no question about it. But it turns into a conversation of if Colorado wins the cup, then they win. If Colorado doesn't win the cup, they don't they kind of just wasted their time. But that's how it is
Yeah.
with rentals. With rentals, that's what it is. You buy these guys with the expectation of winning the cup, and so that's kind of what
And
this
if you
is
could sign them
doing.
to an extension once their UFAs and they hit the market, and you prevent them from hitting the market, and you sign them, that's an even bigger one. But again, it all
Yeah,
comes down to having enough cap space to sign the guy, and making sure that you guys both have the same expectations in terms of term and salary as well. So I'm just gonna say thank you so much, guys, for checking out this video. There's more to come. This is just the beginning. This officially sets the market for the defenseman. We know Tyler Toffoli a couple of weeks ago had dealt from the Montreal Canadiens to Calgary Flames, so that set the market for in terms of forwards. But the 2022 NHL trade deadline is a trade deadline that's essentially really, really, really focused on defenseman in this market. So with Chychrun being out, Sherrod's value skyrockets, and he's been playing some great hockey under Martin St. Louis. So we're gonna see a deal coming up soon in terms of what they could get for him. Also, Klingberg off the boards. The remaining defensemen on the market, their value is going to continue to skyrocket as the deadline approaches because
yeah.
that's it's essentially in demand right now. So I don't know if you have any concluding thoughts, Luca.
Not, no, not really. I think the only thing that I want to say is, keep the trades coming, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens between now and next Monday. 1 week away from the trade deadline, boys, and we're just getting things started. So get excited because it's trade season, baby. Let's get it.
And just a
Let's get it
quick
rolling.
reminder that we will be streaming the NHL trade deadline on Monday, March 21st. So make sure to subscribe to our channel to tune in to get every single coverage of every single deal on that day. We're going to be covering every single thing. We're going to be sharing our thoughts, the deals, what basically the analysts are saying about the deals. And thank you once again for helping us reach 500 subscribers. It was long overdue, and now we will continue to work hard and try to hit 1K. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, guys. See you on the next episode.